What's happening with it, y'all? So, in a recent interview, Keith Thurman is now coming out saying that he's the backup plan if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford don't fight. Yeah, he's the backup plan to fight Errol Spence on PBC. Let's talk about it. Before we do, make sure that y'all hit my like button and sub to the channel if you're not already subscribed to the channel. What's happening with it, y'all? Make sure that y'all hit that like button. So Keith Longtime Thurman, Keith Longtime Thurman, that's his name now, because he ain't had a meaningful fight in a long time. That man, since 2017 when he fought Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman has had one meaningful fight, and that was Manny Pacquiao. He fought 3 times, but 2 out of them 3 fights was tune-ups. He had one meaningful fight, and that was Manny Pacquiao. So he ain't did nothing in a long time. Keith Longtime Thurman. He's coming out, and like I said, he's saying that, hey, I'm the backup plan if the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford don't pan out. Yeah, me. Now, I'm not gonna knock Keith Thurman's resume. Keith Thurman got, pretty stellar resume. He been in the ring with Sean Porter, got the victory over Sean Porter. Been in the ring with Danny Garcia, got the victory over Danny Garcia. Been in the ring with Manny Pacquiao and lost a very close split decision to Manny Pacquiao. With all of that being said, he hasn't done nothing meaningful in a long time. He haven't had a meaningful win since Danny Garcia in 2017. That was 5.5 years ago. But Keith Thurman, he's been offered fights, verbally offered fights, with guys like Jaron Boots Ennis and a few other opponents. But Keith Thurman, he seems that he's not trying to get in the ring with Jaron Boots Ennis. It seemed like that he was waiting around for a big fight with Terence Crawford or Errol Spence. But recently, Keith Thurman, he had a chance to address all of that. And he's saying that, the reason that Terence Crawford fight didn't pan out, he told Terence Crawford he needed one tune-up and then he was going to be ready to fight. And he said, hey, look, I've been ready. But Terence Crawford obviously chose to set out. He didn't want to fight Keith Thurman. He chose to set out and wait to see if he could make an Errol Spence fight. It is what it is with that. I think that Terence Crawford should have fought Keith Thurman, right? I think he would have stopped Keith Thurman with a body shot. But who knows? Keith Thurman ain't nothing to be played with. He's still a very tough contender, even though he's not in his prime no more, or he's not active enough to be in his prime. Let's just say that. But I still think that Bud should have took that fight, and it would have made the negotiations leading into the Errol Spence fight a lot easier, right? And I think that him and Keith Thurman would have done big numbers on pay-per-view. But that's all past tense. As far as Keith Thurman, we know, like I said, his inactivity has been the downfall of his career. But now he's saying that he's in tremendous shape. He's keeping his weight down better than ever in his whole career. And he says that, hey, he been ready to go. He said he been ready to start training camp. He just hasn't got a call. He says that PBC has been sitting him on the sideline. And the reason that he thinks that PBC haven't matched him up with anybody on their roster or anybody on anybody else's roster is because they want him to wait around and be the backup plan if the Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight don't pan out. He said, yeah, why y'all think that I haven't had a fight announcement yet? He said, because I'm definitely fighting before the year is out. I've already informed PBC I'm not sitting out. I'm 150% healthy. I'm ready to go. He says, but the reason they haven't gave me that call or set a contract on my desk is because they want me to be the backup plan. They want me to fight Errol Spence if they're not able to make a Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight. Of course, he was asked, well, Errol Spence says that he's not going to fight you. And Keith Thurman mentioned, a quote that Errol Spence had said in one of his interviews. He says, well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And Errol Spence did say that in one of his interviews, and I believe it was leading up to the fight with Yordenis Ugas. And they asked him, would he fight Keith Thurman if the money was right? And Errol Spence said, well, we'll see. So Keith Thurman, he took that and he ran with it because they said, well, Errol Spence recently basically made a reference like when he said no, he meant no forever, like he's not fighting you. And Keith Thurman said, well, you know, all I know is in the interview, he said, we'll see. So that leaves a door open for me and him to fight. He says that once PBC puts that money on the table, right, money talk and bullshit walk. He says Errol Spence will definitely fight me, in my opinion, if the money is right. He says, so yeah, that's why they haven't scheduled me for a fight, because they are having me as the backup plan. He says, that's what I think. I think I'm the backup plan. Now, as far as Keith Thurman being the backup plan, you know, if an Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight don't come through, if you really think about it, I think that's probably the best fight that they can make over on the PBC with Errol Spence right now. You know, if Errol Spence stays at 147 pounds to defend his titles one more time, right? That's the best probably fight that they can make. That's probably the best fight that they can make when you look at the landscape of the 147 pound division, because you got Virgil Ortiz, he just fought. So, you know, they're not going to make a fight with Virgil Ortiz. Plus Virgil Ortiz is over there with DAZN. You look at Jerome Boots Ennis, that's a hell of a fight. That is a hell of a fight, but I don't think that they want to make a fight between Errol Spence and Jerome Boots Ennis right now, because they looking at Jerome Boots Ennis. He's coming in his own zone. They think that he's going to be a future superstar, and I don't think they want to put him in the ring with an Errol Spence right now, because down the line at 154 pounds, that could be a potential mega fight. Although Jerome Boots Ennis is Errol Spence's mandatory, but I think that fight will be much bigger down the line at 154, and they will clash at some point in time in their careers. So when you look at the landscape, Keith Thurman and Errol Spence, they got a bunch of history, right? This was Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence before Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. One of the biggest fights in boxing at one point in time that everybody wanted to see was Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence. Keith Thurman had a big name at that point in time. Errol Spence was oncoming and he was growing his name and his profile in the sport of boxing. And that's the fight that people wanted to see. And that fight continued to get bigger and bigger when people felt like that Keith Thurman was refusing to fight Errol Spence and he was running from Errol Spence. And personally, I think if Keith Thurman had never got injured, right, and took 2 years off, I think the fight would have happened. If you look at the timeline, when Errol Spence first started calling out Keith Thurman, he was a champion and Errol Spence didn't have a belt at that point in time. Keith Thurman was letting it be known that, you know, he wanted to go after the titles. And eventually in 2016, we saw Keith Thurman and Sean Porter fight each other. And back then in 2016, the Keith Thurman and Sean Porter fight, it did very big numbers, you know, on regular TV. It did real big numbers. It was a big fight. And Keith Thurman was able to beat Sean Porter. Now, Keith Thurman, he was already a champion then, right? So his thing that he was saying when Errol Spence was calling him out, he was saying that he wanted to unify. Danny Garcia was a WBC champion at that time. So it made a lot of sense for him to go fight Danny Garcia, because if y'all go back and look at the timeline, Keith Thurman fought Danny Garcia before Errol Spence fought Kell Brook and got that belt, you know, and that's a fact. So Keith Thurman unified, and then after that, Keith Thurman was injured. He stayed out of the sport for 2 years and came back and he took a Manny Pacquiao fight. Now, you can't blame him for taking a Manny Pacquiao fight, because Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, at that point in time, all of them wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao. So can I blame him for taking a Manny Pacquiao fight? Not really, because all of them wanted Manny Pacquiao. And I don't see any of them turning down a Manny Pacquiao fight at that time. So, you know, it is what it is. Now, did he want to fight Errol Spence? No. But I think the fight would have happened, because if Keith Thurman would have never got injured and he would have continued to win, the fans would have pressured Keith Thurman into fight Errol Spence, and that fight would have happened. But that fight never came to fruition. Errol Spence, he felt some type of way about that. He feels like Keith Thurman didn't give him a chance when he was calling Keith Thurman out. Now, Keith Thurman is on that side of the fence, and Errol Spence is the big dog, and he said, hey, I'm gonna play you the same way that I feel you was playing me. And it is what it is. But it's a story behind this fight. You know, Keith Thurman, he can sell a fight. Errol Spence, we already know what he does. And this will be a big ass fight. It'll be a real big fight. You know, it's the next best thing if we not gonna get Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. So I don't have a problem with this fight if the Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight don't go through. But do I want to see Terence Crawford and Errol Spence? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's the best fight in boxing right now to me. So let me know what y'all think if Keith Thurman is the fallback plan, and what y'all think about a Keith Thurman and Errol Spence fight right now if it were to happen. Would y'all like to see it if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford don't come together and make this fight happen? Hit my like button, subscribe to the channel, and y'all already know how I do. There you go, talking that boxing again. And I'm gone, y'all.